All right, today we're going to talk about solving by factoring level 1, which is going to include solving an equation by factoring out a greatest common factor and solving an equation that is going to require you to factor a trinomial. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, let's review how to find a greatest common factor, especially when you have variables in it. All right, so what I'm going to do first is do a factor tree for each of my numbers to figure out what is my highest factor that they have in common. Okay, so for 12, I know I can do 1 times 12 and 2 times 6 and 3 times 4. So those would all be my factors of 12. And then 18, I have 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6, and that is it. So when you look at your list and compare, what is the highest number that they have in common? Okay, and that would be the 6. So your GCF for 12 and 18 would be 6. All right, then for the next one, so 36 and 90. 36, we have 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, and 6 times 6. Okay, and if you're not sure what those are, take your calculator and do 36 divided by 1, 36 divided by 2, 36 divided by 3, 36 divided by 4, so forth. Okay, and so for 90, I know I have 1 and 90, 2 and 45, 3 and 30. Do not think it divides by 4, nope. 90 divided by 5 is 18. 9 divided by 6 is 15. And then it does not divide into 7 or 8. And then I have 9 and 10. Okay, so when I look at that list, I want to find my highest value that they have in common. And they both have an 18. So my GCF here is 18. Okay, all right, and then the next. Okay, here I know I can divide 4 and 24 by 4. Okay, so I'm just going to use that value, and then they also both have an x. So I can divide both of them by 4x. So this GCF is 4x. Okay. All right, so negative 14x and 49x squared. Right. So here's another way that you can do. You can still do the factor tree sort of thing like we did on the first 2 examples, but for this one, I'm going to break it down into its prime numbers. So you could also do it this way. So for negative 14x would be negative 2 times 7 times x. Okay. And then for the 49, I could say 7 times 7 times x times x. And that would give me all the primes. And so now I just circled what all they have in common. So here I know I have a 7 in common. And I also have a x in common. So the things they have in common would be your greatest common factor. So this one's greatest common factor would be 7x. Okay, I'm going to do that same sort of thing on this last one. So you can kind of do these all a little bit different. You pick your way. So 9 is 3 times 3. A squared is A times A. And then we have a B. Right, and then 30. Okay, So 30 is 3 times 10, but 10 can also be broken down, so it'll be 3 times 2 times 5. Okay, so this will go into that. So I'm going to write that out. So I have 3 times 2 times 5, 1A, and 3 B's. Okay, so now I'm going to circle what they have in common. So I have a 3 here and here. I don't have another 3, I don't have a 2, don't have a 5. Okay, but then they do have an A, and then they do have a B. Okay, so this time my GCF is 3AB. Okay, so that is just finding your greatest common factor. Okay, so let's look at some examples of how to solve some equations by finding your greatest common factor and then continuing to solve. Okay, so the first thing when you're solving quadratic equations is you want to make sure it's equal to 0. Okay, you don't want to start it unless it's equal to 0 in standard form. Okay, then you always look for a GCF every single time. Okay, so for example 1, it is equal to 0. Okay, and then now I'm looking for a GCF. Okay, so this GCF, you can divide both of them by 2 and also the X. So this is like, so this problem would be kind of like this one right here. Okay, so my GCF here is 2X. So I'm just going to write it out to the side. GCF is 2X. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is divide both sides by 2X. That goes on the outside of your parentheses. So 18 divided by 2 is 9. X squared divided by X is just X. And then 2X divided by 2X is 1. Okay, once you get it factored, you will take each factor and set it equal to 0. And so what I mean by each factor, this is one factor. Okay, I'm going to do 2X equals 0. Okay, and then this is the other factor, 9X plus 1 equals 0. And so now you have 2 linear equations that you will solve for X. So here I'm going to divide by 2. 0 divided by 2 is 0. And then over here I'm going to subtract 1. That gives me 9X equals negative 1. I'm going to divide by 9. And that gives me X equals negative 1 over 9. And so those two values, so 0 and negative 1/9, would be your solutions to that problem. Okay, so for example 2, you want it to be equal to 0 first. Okay, so to make this equal to 0, I'm going to take this 7X and move it over here. To move it, I must subtract it. Okay, so that's going to give me X squared minus 7X equals 0. Now, if it was already negative, to move it, then I would have to add it, depending on what the sign is to begin with. Okay, here, the only thing that they have in common here is an X. There's just a 1 right here with the X squared, so there's no number that they have in common, but they have an X in common. So the GCF here is X, so I'm going to divide that by X. The X goes on the outside, X squared divided by X leaves me with X. 7X divided by X just leaves me with the minus 7 equals 0. Okay, once it's factored, you split it, set each one equal to 0. So this is one factor, so I'm setting it equal to 0. And this is the other factor, set it equal to 0. All right, now X equals 0 over here, that's done. You can't do anything with that. So So that's one of your answers. So x equals 0 is an answer. Okay, and then over here on x minus 7, I need to add 7 to both sides. Okay, and that is your other answer. And so what you're actually doing when you are solving quadratic equations you're trying to figure out where is the graph of the function crossing the x-axis. Okay, so what I'm going to pull up real quick, I'm going to pull up the graphing calculator and show you example 2 and how you can see that the two solutions are 0 and 7 because of where they cross the x-axis. Okay, so on your graphing calculator, if you go to y equals, you will be here. Type in your x squared minus 7x, and if you hit graph, you will see that you cross the x-axis here and here at a value of 0 and 7. So when you are solving these equations, that's all it's finding. Where does it cross the x-axis?